Hello everybody, this is Austin Kim, Chief Operating Officer at Crypterium. Probably you've seen me before with a, let's say, festive Christmas review of Crypterium's year in the past and also looking forward to a little bit in the future. We've gone red today on our slide rather than traditional blue, of course representing Christmas. Actually a fact I'm sure you all know, that until the 1930s, Santa wasn't the happy, smiley, rosy-cheeked, red fat man that we know today. He was all sorts of different things. He could have been an intellectual or a scary elf or all sorts. It was Coca-Cola that decided it would be a nice idea to make him look red and jolly for their advertising. Anyway, as I said, on today's live stream, actually, I should change that word. It's not a live stream. Today is the 24th of December. Right now, it's about 11:30 UK time, but I would normally do these live streams about 4 or 5 o'clock UK time, but being the 24th of December just wasn't possible. So my apologies, this isn't actually live, so don't send out any questions because I wouldn't be able to read them. But anyway, we're going to do a quick review of the 2021 year that's just passed for Crypterium, and we're going to spend quite a bit of time looking at what it is we're going to do for 2022, which I think is quite exciting, and hopefully you'll be interested. So let's start with what have we done in the past, not just the whole 2021, but since really Crypterium was created. So I would say this, I would call this Crypterium 1.0 is the common way of referring to your first launch. And our idea right at the start was focus on payments, focus on making everything crypto easy to use and all in one simple location. And I'm not saying that we've done everything perfect, and I'm not saying we're the best at everything, but we have done a lot of what we said we were going to do at the start. You can spend crypto, you can buy it, you can exchange it, you can get a savings account, you can get a loan, etc. So, the 1.0 version of Crypterium is interesting, and it's done a very, it's a very good job. It's got us to where we are today. But the future of crypto won't be just about what we have done so far today, and that's what I'll focus on a little bit more later. But we're pretty, not satisfied isn't the right phrase, but we do feel that we've achieved a lot of what we set out to do. And then in 2021, or just a little bit earlier, we saw there was a huge opportunity in the B2B space, and we tried to create a white label solution that was effectively a crypto banking as a service app for our business partners. And again, I think we've been really very successful in this space. We're not the only game in town, but we're pretty much the only game in town here. We still give customers an opportunity to effectively bypass 3 or 4 years of work and $10+ million through a simple integration or an SDK solution to have all the Crypterium services integrate the customer's own token and provide a liquidity solution for that token so that they can load it onto a Visa card. All of that is available, and I think this year we've signed 25, 30 plus partners, and all of those partners will start to generate significant revenues in the future. Unfortunately, they don't generate huge revenues up front. Of course, we do have an integration fee, but that integration fee is a little bit of profit, but mostly it covers our costs. The future profit, however, really starts to happen when the customers launch, and many of the customers we work with are not yet ready for launch. Even if we are ready for launch and the app is built, of course, they have to have their own business plans and their own business models ready for launch. So many of those 25, 30 partners that we've signed up haven't actually launched yet, even if the services have been built. So 2022 will start to really see the value of those white label solutions. And that was in addition really to our original vision. We never had that within the original vision. The year has done, we've had a pretty solid year in terms of registrations, not quite doubled, but it's not far off a doubling of our user numbers or our registered user numbers. And similarly, when it comes to transactional volume, we can see that we have had a very solid year in terms of revenue growth as well. The blue bar in 2021 here is just for the 9 months, and whereas the 2020 is for the full 12 months. So we continue to grow at a pretty solid pace. Of course, we would have liked it to be more, but it's solid, if not spectacular, let's say. But it is a pretty solid growth. A big news for us during the year was the fact that we got ourselves crypto registration in the UK. Doesn't sound like a big deal when I say it like that, but we were only the 14th company to get it, or maybe even the 13th company to get it, after the registration application process opened almost 2 years earlier than when we received it. Since then, there's been about another 10 companies in addition to ourselves that have received it. But there's some pretty big companies out there who have still not received it. For example, eToro, Revolut, some big exchanges that have put their names forward to be registered in the UK, not achieved it. So that was a very positive thing. And the key is not necessarily about what it means for the UK, because of course it means that we can provide solutions to UK citizens, but it means that we can also go to other jurisdictions in the world and say, well, the UK have registered us and they were happy with our process, and it just makes everything a little bit easier. So that was a big step for us to get that, and it shows that well, at least the UK regulator was happy with our processes and procedures. Of course, for some people listening today, you will have been taking part in a crowd investing. Again, it took quite a bit of time, but it was reasonably successful. We raised just under 2.8 million euros. Well over 2,000 people have participated, and pretty much that was more than we were hoping for. For those people who have invested, just to understand where we're up to with regards to the transition. So if you have followed it closely, you may remember that when we first did the campaign, it is based upon the fact that Crypterium was a public company. For various reasons, we were unable to complete the campaign as a public company because CEDARS was unable to fulfill certain requirements in Estonia. And we are therefore becoming a private company again. It makes no difference in terms of our regulatory reporting or anything, but it does make it much easier for our investors such as CEDARS. Anyway, that is progressing. We would expect to have done the transition from a public to a private company by the end of February at the latest. It's a matter of just procedure. We had to do a full audit of our company and things like that before we can get regulatory approval. But anyway, it's moving step by step, and we don't see any further obstacles in getting that completed in the very near future. In the last few weeks, I'm now going to focus a little bit about what we've done in the last few weeks rather than, I'm not going to go through every partnership for the year. This is actually an important partnership. I wanted to mention this one, Fireblocks. Crypto custody isn't probably the most exciting topic in the world, but having the right custody providers is very important. It's the simplest way is for those people who are not crypto literate. The custody is like the vault, where you put the tokens and make sure they're secure. Up until now, we've always been using BitGo. Now, BitGo, absolutely nothing wrong with BitGo. They're still probably the world's largest crypto custody provider, very secure, but they're a little bit inflexible. And they have a different type of technology that I don't fully understand. That means that adding a new token inside the BitGo environment is incredibly complicated and also very, very expensive. So with the B2B solutions that we provide, what we need to have is an ability to add new tokens into a custody solution very easily. And Fireblocks fits that bill. First of all, they have well over 20 blockchains within their environment. This slide here says coming soon. I mean, this is about 2 months old, this slide. So I'm sure the 20 is now significantly increased. They're growing at a very rapid pace. But what this will enable us to do, and we'll be finished on this integration probably within 2 weeks. But what it will enable us to do is when we are talking about any new token, if that token is on an existing blockchain that Fireblocks has, and most tokens will be on those chains, there'll only be a small number that are on more obscure chains. We can add that token into the Crypterium wallet in the matter of 1 day. Right now, if we want to add a new token into the wallet, we have to effectively build almost a custody capability outside the BitGo environment. We have to do all sorts of checks and complicated things that takes us about 2 to 3 months, and now we'll be able to do it in 1 day. So that means particularly for the B2B customers, if they knock on our door and say, well, we want this particular token, as long as it's on a chain that is within the environment, we can add it, and we reduce the cost, but more importantly, we reduce the time to add a customer. And by reducing the time on one customer, it means we can bring on more customers, because the biggest time constraint on bringing on B2B partners is their token. Adding just an SDK version of our wallet is relatively simple and a couple of weeks' work. Once the token gets involved, then everything becomes quite complicated. So instead of having 25 partners, we could probably have 100 partners. So it's a very, very important step for us to bring on a second custody provider. We've also spread out. I've been pushing for this business accounts now for a very, very long time. There is a surprising lack of business accounts in the crypto world. There are, of course, some specialist companies, but generally basic business accounts within a easy-to-use application is hard to find. And once we get past the beta test, basically what this will allow us to do is, or allow our business partners to do, is they'll be able to open a business wallet, they'll be able to accept crypto, they'll be able to send crypto from a business KYC perspective, and also even earn interest, etc. So that's an important step, because we get a lot of companies saying, well, can we open an account? And until we were able to launch this feature, the answer was no, which then you end up with people doing wraparounds and have individual names, and people trying to do crypto in their individual name on behalf of a company, and then before you know it, you end up with anti-money laundering questions, and it's just very complicated. And we also opened up for the first time a partnership with an algo to see whether or not there was an interest in people basically being part of, not quite an investment fund, I wouldn't call it, but the concept is similar to an investment fund. But we had a very nice take-up, and that's been running now for about 4 weeks. And if it is successful, then we will launch this in a much more significant format, and probably other options as well as the Gen assets. We've also started to up the number of promotions that we do. We've pretty much got one every week now. Here's just a few that we've had in the last few weeks, just to keep our users interested, to make sure that there is something more than just please buy our token or please look at our services. We try and get people much more interested. And I think we've upped our game significantly there. We used to do maybe one a month. Now we're pretty much doing one a week. Of course, you could do one a day, but then people will take no notice. So I think we've got that about right now. I usually talk about our token burning. I'm going to very briefly mention it again today. So the Crypterium supply of tokens was 100 million tokens. We've now burnt over 3 million tokens. But I'm mentioning it today because some people might look at our token burning chart and say, well, does that mean that your performance has dropped in November and October? And I just take this opportunity to remind people what actually happens with Crypterium. So when not every transaction, but when certain transactions take place, the customer pays a fee, a small fee in the CRPT token, and it's 0.5% of the transaction. So in very simple maths, if somebody did a $100 transaction, they're going to pay a fee of 50 cents in the Crypterium token. Now, most customers don't have that token at the time of the transaction, and of course, we go into the marketplace, we buy it, and then it's burnt. We actually destroy the token. But of course, 50 cents is easy to understand, but if the token has a fluctuating price, then 50 cents could buy 1 token or could buy 10 tokens. And during the period of October and November, our token price actually increased by quite a significant amount. Unfortunately, December it's dropped back down as the market dropped, but during the October-November period, the token price increased by a significant amount, hence the number of tokens that were actually burnt was reduced. Now, that is actually a core element of our token economics, because, of course, if we just carried on burning tokens at an exponential rate, you end up with no tokens. So it is important that the whole economics of supply and demand, as the price of the tokens goes up, the price should go up as the demand goes up, but of course the number of tokens you burn will then fall. So that's just a quick explanation. So if anybody was looking at 74,000, why is it more than half of the September? It is actually a consequence of token price growth. I've introduced some of these people in the past, but I just wanted to show it again today. Also to mention that there's been a sort of slight change at the top. So Stephen Parker, who has given these live streams before and will continue to do so in the future, Stephen has sort of taken a sort of slightly different direction now, and he's decided to stop being the sort of the day-to-day CEO and is becoming our executive director of the UK company and also chairman of the advisory committee. So Stephen will be much more now focused on, let's say, the strategic aspects of the company rather than the day-to-day running the company. He will continue to be part of the company and may even well do the next live stream. So Stephen is still very much part of the company, but not sort of running the day-to-day aspects. And the day-to-day part is sort of now taken over by Vladimir. If you've ever sort of followed Crypterium, Vladimir is the sort of co-founder of the company, the lead founder, let's say. I mean, I think it's a little harsh to call him the co-founder. He was the lead founder of the company. He brought me in, for example, at the early stage, and has effectively been looking after much of our strategy and communications elements for a long time now. Vladimir has a number of other companies, and he's slowly been sort of extracting himself from those, and now his total focus is on Crypterium. And here's some other faces that you may or may not have had any conversations with. Andrei Diakonov, he's our Chief Commercial Officer. I think he's doing a live stream on the B2B elements. Sergey is head of our US office. We're actually opening now a US, not just capability, but we're opening a US office. We're talking to our legal support right now to work out what's the best state to register ourselves in. So early in 2022, we will have a fully functioning office in the US. And here's some just other faces of people you might have come across. Roof down at the bottom, of course, because he looks cool. He's head of design. Designers always look cool. So that's the team. Now let's move on to what's going to happen in 2022, and let's call this Crypterium 2.0. So Crypterium 1.0 was from 2018 to where we are today, and as I said, I felt that maybe we're not brilliant, but we've done a lot of what we said we were going to do. Now 2022 and going forward is going to be an additional direction. It's not a new direction. We're not going off on a tangent and forgetting what's behind. We're going to add to what we've done. And we're going to, in addition to what we've done, which is centralized finance or crypto centralized finance, we're going to add in a very significant element of decentralized finance. Now, for most people, they don't really care what is what. What's centralized finance, what's decentralized finance. When you go to your bank, you don't really care whether they use SEPA payments or SWIFT payments or faster payments. You just know that they do it. And it's for the same pretty much for most people in the crypto space. But there are significantly, let's think about it, very attractive reasons to be in the decentralized finance space, because you can earn significantly more revenue on your assets than you can in the centralized finance space. And it started to grow very significantly over the last sort of 18 months. In this chart here, we say it's 100 billion of funds. I read an article yesterday that said it was 300 billion of funds. So whether it's 100 billion or 300 billion, it's getting to be a bigger number. But the number of users in decentralized finance compared to centralized finance is quite significantly different, 100 million to say 4 million. But I don't want to go into today to try and explain what is the difference between these two. It's not really very important to explain what the difference is, but it's important to understand what you can get if you do the DeFi part very well. So on the left-hand side here, we show what the CeFi market interest rates are. And these are very nice interest rates, by the way, 8, 10%, etc. You see some pretty good returns on your investment here. But to get, for example, a 10% return on your investment at, say, crypto.com for a tether, you'll have been locking up your token for a 12-month period, and you probably didn't have a 7-day lockup option. On the right-hand side is pretty much what you could be getting in the DeFi space. And those numbers are many, many times greater than you can get on the left-hand side. And they have various techniques and tools to be able to generate returns on investment, crypto farming and liquidity pools and various other techniques, which again I'm not going to go into today. So the question is, why doesn't everybody just move into something that's a DeFi market? Well, the reason is it's very, very complicated. It's really a tough space. I consider myself not a crypto expert, but I've been in crypto now for 4 years and I pretty much understand the space. But it is very, very hard to get going and very difficult to really feel confident that what you're doing isn't going to lose all your money. Opening the wallet part is easy, with a MetaMask or something like that. But even that gives people a little bit of fear, because you've got to suddenly remember, I think it's 9 different words, and you've got to write them down and put them in the safe and all sorts of things. And then once you've done that, there are so many other protocols and connections that you need to make. It's very time consuming. When I did it, I'm probably not average, because here it says it's 1.5 hours on average. Well, for me, it was 3 hours. I took 3 hours being reasonably crypto literate, trying to understand what I had to do. And throughout the entire process, I was nervous. Okay, I was only playing around with about $500 worth of tokens, but I never felt 100% confident at any point that I was going to do the right thing. And just one technical thing between CeFi and DeFi is, DeFi is effectively a person-to-person or a peer-to-peer network, and there is no central entity. So if you make a mistake, that's it, it's gone. You don't get it back. There is no way of getting it back. It's not like when you send it to the wrong account in a bank and the bank says, oh, we'll find it for you. That's not how it works. So it's confusing, it feels risky, and people have made mistakes. It's time consuming, and it's also costly. A transaction is very, very expensive. And if you only doing a small sum of money to test it out, well, it's just not worth it. So there are these incredible benefits for decentralized finance, in addition to what's happening in the centralized finance, but most people aren't able to use them. And that's why there's only 4 million people. So we came up with basically choice.com, and within the choice.com environment is the Charism sort of ecosystem, and within that we'll have a whole range of features. We're building that ecosystem right now. We'll have a decentralized exchange. We will create bridges between all the various chains that are out there. We're going to launch an insurance element on top of the transactions so that people can effectively remove risk. And a whole range of features, which I'm not going to go into today because that is not the purpose of this presentation. But the idea is very straightforward. We will make using the DeFi solutions as easy as it has been to use the Crypterium application so far. So in the same way that I can do an exchange between 2 assets by effectively pressing a button, it'll be the same in the DeFi space. If I want to take a savings account, I can stay in the CeFi environment and have it locked up and know that it's it's effectively very, very safe and earn 6% return on investment, or I can lock it up for 7 days and put it into a DeFi option. You will have choices, but in a very, very easy to use environment. We will also add in, the latest hot topics like the NFTs or non-fungible tokens if you are relatively new to this space. So within that sits let's say a wrap around that is the choice.com. It's your choice. We chose the word choice very carefully. We didn't just, throw it out there. It's your choice as to what you want to do. Do you want to do it using traditional tools, and traditional in inverted commas because we're talking 2 or 3 years old tools, or do you want to use some of these new tools out there? And they will all be within effectively one application. You may switch between 2 different screens, etc., but will be in within one application. And I think of it that 99% of people do not care what is CeFi and DeFi. If my bank says to me, we have a savings account where we've taken away the risk for you and you've got $500 left in your checking account every month, why don't you just lock that up and we'll give you a 30% return on investment, then I would take that option. That option isn't there right now, but I would take that option. And that's the type of thing we can do with the DeFi. The other thing I would point out, and this is still the case, I mean, there's still a very large debate, for example, about whether Bitcoin is money or not. And of course it is money because it has means of exchange, so it is money. But it isn't really operating as a means of exchange for most people. El Salvador, perhaps the exception. Most people are holding it. It's an asset. It's now often being regarded to as sort of digital gold, a storage of value. And that is the same case for many assets. So if it is a storage of value, and it is not really being used for everyday transactions, which it is not, then it makes sense to provide the highest rate of return on those assets in the easiest way possible. And that's what choice.com will do. So we'll end up with effectively a single environment where the customer has access to and hassle-free access to DeFi assets. It will be significantly cheaper. We will effectively collate or aggregate or whatever you want to call it various transactions so that we can effectively spread the cost so it's not an individual transaction. We'll have high yield instruments and a seamless transition between DeFi and CeFi wallets. And we'll do that very, very fast for the user. So that's the idea. I don't want to go into all the economics of it right now. I don't want to go into what will be powering it and how it will be governed, etc. We will run another, maybe even call it a workshop on this in January. We will invite not the entire world, but a very select group of maybe our token owners, our most significant token owners, and our higher invested equity shareholders, and maybe some other people who just really want to get involved. And we'll run some form of workshop in January, and we'll explain the entire vision, and maybe they can help us roll it out. So we've been building this now for the last few months. Of course, we're not finished. There's so much to do, but we're very clear in what it is we're trying to do. And I just think that this will take us from what is now a well-run application, but it's hard now to differentiate ourselves with other applications that have a similar functionality. Those type of differentiations, and that might be just 1% on your savings account or something. But this takes us into a whole new ball game. We haven't seen anybody else trying to do what we're doing. Of course, there is lots of DeFi applications out there, but they're all doing the things that we said are the problems with DeFi. And if we can bring all of this into one simple to use application, and we can take away the risk that is associated with the current services, then we are very confident that we have a single stop location for pretty much everybody's needs. Add that to things like Fireblocks and being able to bring in more tokens, and adding that to the B2B element. Imagine adding all of this now to a B2B customer that's, for example, wants to really make a splash in the crypto space. Put all that together, and I think we have a very winning proposition. So that's our focus for next year. I hope I didn't bore you by going into too much detail, and for some people I probably didn't go into enough detail, but there we go. Let's wait now until, as I say, late January, and we'll run something in much more detail. So that's it for today. I think it's been a good year. It's been a difficult year for everybody. UK right now, seeing incredible cases of COVID, and I'm sure most people are having the same problems everywhere else. But at least for myself, it's Christmas Day tomorrow, so I'm looking forward to a bit of relaxation, and I hope you all have a festive period with not too much trouble, and we enjoy ourselves. So until the new year, thank you for your time, and I will see you all again soon. Thank you very much.